Hello, listeners, and welcome to Area of Expertise, a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast where we cover all things D&D. From the massive worlds you build to the heroes you play, AoE has you covered. Happy listening. Hello everyone, welcome to Area of Expertise. I'm Wyatt.
And I'm Devin.
And today we got a little bit of a special guest for you. I know last episode it was just me and Devin, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, my friend?
Hi everybody, I'm Thor.
Yeah, so Thor's a good buddy of ours, and he's been real active in a lot of the D&D games that we've played over the past, what, year almost? It's been a minute.
A year with you two, and then 3 years with our collective buddy Chase.
So it's been our little group of D&D guys have been running for quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. It's a close-knit group.
Yeah. And so actually, speaking of that, have you guys done anything cool with D&D lately?
We haven't really played recently with school and stuff, but I've taken over DMing for Devin and been trying to make a campaign, kind of like a homebrew kind of thing, and it's flipping it on the hero archetype, trying to make stuff that is normally good be evil and stuff like that. I like to make red herrings and stuff, so it's kind of like a hard process to DM.
We got the D&D Suicide Squad,
basically,
lovable assholes.
Yeah, and Wyatt is definitely Harley Quinn.
I prefer more ambiguous.
Morally ambiguous. I like that.
Yeah.
What about you, Devin? You been doing anything neat?
Well, like Thor said, with school going on, I haven't had a lot of time, but I have been making a homebrew class based around a necromancer, and that's been pretty fun recently.
Yeah, you just showed me that. It looks really interesting. What it had 3 different subclasses, or what are they called? Archetypes?
Subclasses, archetypes, same thing. One's undeath, based on being a minion master and raising the dead. One's blood, and it's kind of like the hemomancy type thing, and the other one is spirits, where you call them totems and different things to enhance or debuff others.
That's cool. What's the SpongeBob meme where it's I thought you said Weast.
I thought you said Weast.
Who's that guy?
Patrick.
Well, no, but the Flying Dutchman. The Flying Dutchman.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
Patrick, and you have the Flying Dutchman behind you.
Yeah.
And that's all you can say. You just have a boat behind you. I thought you said Weast.
Ooh.
You've been working on that class for quite a while, right?
It changes a lot. The first time that I started working on it was probably 3 years ago.
Oh,
and
boy.
I make it, and then I get hyped up for it, and then I just don't have an opportunity to ever use it, and then I come back to it later, and I'm like, oh man, I could do all these new cool things.
Interest change, and then suddenly,
yeah, this is its 7th or 8th iteration of being almost completely changed.
I totally understand that.
But
I've delved into custom classes a little bit with I've played with the idea of a runecaster, which is just a magic user, but it's all those spells are delayed by 5 minutes, so it's just a worse wizard. But
yeah, if I have one quip about D&D 5e, it's that you don't have class selection, you have the archetype selection, which I think makes it feel oh, you're always a rogue, but you can be 6 different kinds of rogues, and I feel that's a lot less fun, whereas in 3.5 and Pathfinder they have more classes, which I understand it's more conducive to have new people that are playing. They can just pick up the player handbook and these are the classes that are available. Mm-hmm. But it feels you're forcing play styles into classes that don't necessarily have spots for them. A necromancer can have its own class and not be a school in the wizard.
Yeah, because as it's printed right now, the necromancer is just a subclass of wizard, and it's not
bad.
Great.
Which that's
I think
that was kind of Wizards' way of dealing with that problem. Was it's if someone who's never played the game before picks up a book and cracks it open, and they're which of these 28 classes do I pick? Instead of what is it normally 8?
There's 12.
12?
Yeah, and as a business model, I get it, because that sells books.
Yeah.
But as a long-term player base, like, we're getting into year 5 or 6 of
Something
5e.
like that. Yeah.
It's time that, like, people have been playing the edition for so long now that they can handle having, like, psionics from Pathfinder in 3.5 and, like, these different, like, little they just came out with a book called was it like the Guide Master to Ebron, where they introduced the Warforged and all that.
That was a while ago, bud.
So the last book they released is like what, a year ago? Like
The last like actual handbook.
Yeah, it wasn't even like a real book. It was more like a
package or something.
Yeah, almost like a supplement.
Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes was the last big book to come out that actually had like things for player options, and that was probably half a year, 6 months ago.
Didn't they just come out with the Acquisitions Incorporated book that had a playable race?
Yeah, I guess there's one playable race in it.
But that kind of feels like it doesn't feel like an addition to it. It just feels like, hey,
small supplement.
Yeah, you can play your campaign like this.
It feels like I downloaded a mod and now
exactly. Like it's like the Macho Man Randy Savage Skyrim, where Randy Savage is Alduin and he just flies over and goes, "Oh yeah!"
And that's your adventure now.
Yeah,
yeah. I'm cool with it. I like my mud crabs that swear and have top hats.
I mean,
sir.
you ever just get into a point in D&D where it's kind of like that, where it's like
just throwing goofy crap for no reason?
Yeah.
Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
It's sometimes good to break it up. Like in the campaign I run, there's this adventuring party that the players get to interact with every now and then, and it's just a collection of NPCs that I can throw at them at every turn to be like, hey, how are you guys doing? You're not dead yet? Cool. But they have a goblin bard in their party.
Ooh.
And he's got that that Porky Pig on a sugar rush kind of thing.
Oh no.
Like his thoughts are super just scattered and he'll give you like sentence fragments and have you put them together. But he sings and it's all just perfect.
Just like, jaunty time.
Like his time is perfect. The lyrics are immaculate. And then he stops playing and he's like, the sweet roll.
Oh no. You actually influenced me on that, because in my homebrew that I'm trying to build, I actually have a group of heroes. Sorry, I'm doing air quotes. You can't really see him.
He's air quoting.
But a group of heroes that's going to be like opposite of the play group that like you're going to run into every so often, because you're the bad guys and they're the good guys. So
the chads,
like a character foil,
and you're
bunch of chads.
And you're the beta virgins.
Today we're talking about character creation.
Oh yeah.
And we're talking about specifically how to make memorable characters. The kind of characters that when someone asks you at Comic-Con what you do and you tell them D&D, this is the character that you pull out and kind of scream at them about for like 5 minutes till they walk away.
What's bad is that every character's like that for me.
Until they get annoyed and they're like, okay.
Like Devin always says, I change characters like underwear, but every underwear has a stain on it.
Every underwear is special and unique.
They all have my name written on the tag.
Exactly. Spelled differently, but they all have my name.
They're all special.
Well, if one of us were to ask you, Thor, what your favorite character is, what's the first one that comes to your mind?
Oh, Valen, my Furbolg druid barbarian. I love that character so much. Like, that was one of the few characters that I physically got upset that died.
I was there for that.
Mainly because it was some bull honky how I died.
It was kind of, but
I had to preface this for the whole show. I roleplay my character more than I game my character. So like if a character does stuff that is like will put them in harm's way or dangerous, but it makes sense for their character, I will do it. So like how he died was that one of our new players that didn't last very long was doing something dumb, and we were fighting against frost giants, and he was downed, and the frost giants were throwing boulders at him, and my character being a druid and being like life has a cycle and it's not his time yet, I think, because if it was, then he would have already died.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do the right thing and run out and save him, but he ends up dying. Granted, it was my fault. I could have just let him die, but in that moment, I think my character would have tried to save him. Same thing with going back. Devin's character in the campaign at the time, Zaka.
My favorite character. If you were to ask me the question I asked you, 100% my favorite character.
He loved this character, but he got a undead whelp dragon that he was going to try and sustain and make him his pet, and my character just like mollywopped this thing off of his shoulder, no. And he shot me and almost killed me.
Yeah, I almost killed him immediately.
Yeah, like he what was it, like 5th level magic missile me
with extra tacked on damage.
Yeah,
for
the lore master. So I was like, in my dying breath, I was like, worth it. Luckily, I didn't die, but it was like,
they wouldn't let me kill you.
Yeah, Zaka was another air quote problem.
Zaka was a psychopath.
Oh,
more of a sociopath.
No, Zaka was a psychopath.
just
fair.
But the most memorable character I have because of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what I want to talk about a little bit later. Is once we get into this, we're gonna talk a little bit about alignments and like what they mean. It's such an abstract topic when you think of it.
We'll get into it.
Oh no!
We each have our own experiences to pull from that. So.
It's gonna be a slog fest of an episode. I can tell.
Alignment is always a contentious subject.
Oh
yes.
Just to forewarn anybody who hasn't played very much, it's always a contentious subject.
It really is. Just things that other people see as the correct move for an alignment can be complete opposite for other people who see the alignment in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna get that into that a little bit later. But first, I want to talk a little bit about, just like where do you start when you make a character? When you print off that crispy character sheet and you sit down and you're thinking, all right, I need a character for this campaign. Devin, what do you usually reach for first?
The first thing that it kind of varies. Whenever I'm making a character, the first thing that I want to choose is what class or what race. I usually choose class first. Like, what class do I want to play? And then what race fits that class the best.
That's usually the point of contention for me, too, is I don't know, should I pick my class first or my race? Because they both kind of play off each other equally.
See, yeah. I like where you guys are going, but backstory. That's where you start.
You start by writing a paragraph.
Yeah. It's just... a backstory really like starts to flesh out what a character does. Like, I'll sit and I'll think, like, Valen could have been anything. I just knew I wanted to make something that had to do with nature. Like, he could have been a ranger, but I wanted to make something about nature. And then I talked to, a big thing for creation is talking to your DM and seeing like where you can go, like seeing what you can do, like what works and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. Like, for a Forgotten Realms character is completely different from a homebrew character. Because, like, or I shouldn't say homebrew character, I should say, like, a homebrew campaign. Because you have the Great Forest, you have Luskin and all these different places where you can go. Whereas in, let's say, Devin's campaign, where he likes to make his homebrew world, you don't have these places. You have the Citadel, you have Aerith, you have
the Arcanum.
You have these different places that hold different bearing than than Baldur's Gate in the Forgotten Realms universe. So, like, the first place you start off with is kind of like for me anyway, is like, okay, how can this character concept fit in, like, where can this backstory fit into their world?
So you like to pick the backstory genre. So like you said, like, I want to play a nature-oriented character. Here are my class options for that.
So instead of being backstory, then I think a concept is where I start then.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, this most recent character, Dralvin, he is a exile from an orc clan. I'm not gonna lie, I pulled him from World of Warcraft. I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft recently, and there's this story going on with this old orc, and I wanted to make an orc character. And I was talking, and that's the first thing I talked to Devin about when I was trying to make this character was, where are the orcs from, and is there like a way for me to make an orc? Because I remember him talking about when the party went there before, how it was kind of like a contentious area, kind of like the Scottish Highlands, and how they don't like outsiders. So I'm like, how can I make a character that is okay with outsiders, like be an orc and be okay with outsiders? And he said that probably the best way is to be like we came up with like the exile idea, kind of like self.
You're forced to deal with other people other than your own.
Exactly.
Which I think we touched on that a little bit last episode about working with your DM in terms of your own limits, where you can go.
That'll be a small topic in almost every episode.
Yeah. But that's definitely like a weak point for myself character building, is I like to build these fantastic characters, and then when I get to the campaign, it's like, let's say I make a Dragonborn fighter, and we get to the campaign and we sit down and the DM is going over his preface of the world, and the first sentence of the preface is, in a world where dragons don't exist.
Oh no.
Oh, well,
it's like, well, I'm just a human with a bad skin complexion.
Well, it's I think you've mentioned it before, and I feel the same, but sometimes you just have a really cool concept for a character, and you want to, like, reveal it as a surprise to your fellow players and get that reaction.
That's how I am.
Like, I've made this character, and I'm going to keep it close to my chest, because I want to surprise everybody, and everybody can be like, oh, that's a really cool character, and nobody expected it.
Yeah.
I get that.
Which, in that situation, if you find yourself in that situation of, I have made a character that thematically does not fit in this world,
You're taking a risk.
Yeah, don't, but like, more so, don't scrap it.
Yeah, just keep it in your back pocket.
It can come in later.
Talk to your DM and, like, see, maybe like with the whole Dragonborn situation, maybe you're the last of your kind. Maybe you're a mutation, an experiment gone wrong.
Maybe you're not like an actual Dragonborn.
Yeah.
Or it can be like a story point where it's the return of the dragons. Like we were talking about our common friend Chase that we all kind of met through. We were making this campaign, and he brought this character that no one knew about, and he hit the thematic of the theme of the D&D set, like the campaign, right on the head. He made a sorcerer paladin that had dragon blood, that had everything to do with good dragon god, not Tiamat, Bahamut, that had everything to do with Bahamut, and our DM was just like, well, that's like, thank goodness you made that, because you're going to be fighting a Drago Lich at the end of it.
Yeah, it was just the perfect character for the scenario, and everybody's just like, whoa.
Yeah,
how many times does that happen?
And then he proceeded to slap cheeks for the rest of the campaign.
Yeah, that was a broken character.
He had advantage on everything.
Well, and it was the first time we had ever seen a Sorcerer, and me being the new DM, I don't want anyone to have like a restriction, so anything can go. And I think you all kind of understand that, like, my campaign's for fun. I don't mean to keep bringing this back to me being a DM, but it's having restrictions on making a character doesn't really, it's not like it saps the fun juice out of it sometimes.
It doesn't really add anything.
But that also happens for power gaming.
That's because it's literally taking it away. Good job, me.
Yeah.
I can't put those points together.
I kind of hit that point too. Like, for me, it's more of a pride thing. Like, if I'm restricting something, it means that I can't, as a DM, deal with it. So I don't feel like that's necessary.
And you just restricted like some spells that I figured had some like pretty big weight to them.
Yeah, they have relevance.
That's something else. Is like, something to kind of reiterate. All three of us talking today are DMs, and all three of us are players.
Yeah, so our topics will bleed, changing back and forth between DM and player.
So if you're sitting at home and you're primarily a dungeon master, a game master, and you're kind of listening to us talk about this character creation process, and like, oh, what is it? I wish they would just talk about the world and stuff. you can apply everything that we talk about here to making NPCs.
Yeah.
Making a memorable NPC is something that your characters, when they leave your game and go talk to other people who are playing D&D, they will tell them about your cool NPC.
Calisthenics guy, Torsten.
Oh, Torsten.
He was supposed to be like a no-name character. I know it, and it was just a good mesh with my character at the time and Torsten, where it just became like he was like part of the game.
Torsten was a knight in my game who joined up with the party to help rid a keep of kobolds, and he was severely wounded, and they helped him out, and they brought him along, and he ended up swearing fealty to them as one of like a knight of their group.
And now he's a permanent fixture.
And now he's the castellan of the keep that they own.
Yep. And I don't think that would have happened if it wasn't like, and I don't want to put it all on.
Well, you and him clicked, like, easy.
Like my character Yorn, just bread and butter, Goliath, and him, like those two just like were two hot dogs in one bun. Not enough room, but man, it was tasty.
Well, I had
That's a good one. I like that.
I had initially based Torsten off of Siegmeyer from Dark Souls, but
Okay.
I hadn't seen the show yet. But you guys pointed out that he was almost a carbon copy of Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist.
Yes. Which that's what I kind of based Yorn off of a little bit. So it was kind of like the characters were like right there.
Like I didn't even know, but it ended up working out really well.
Yeah, so kind of going back into the character creation process. So we talked a little bit in the beginning about inspirations, like
Ooh, yeah.
where you kind of draw your creative juices from when you're writing down your backstory and your character design. You talked about making a character like Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I have like unknowingly, I did not know that you've made characters based around Armstrong.
I did
in my own time.
He didn't mean to.
I didn't mean to, but it completely was.
And Thor has.
Oh yeah.
And I have not.
He's just a great
this.
character.
Like I made a character a few months ago that is just in a character folder. I just felt like rolling up a character.
Yeah, just making a character is fun.
Yeah.
She's a combination of Armstrong and I think her name was Lazova Cold Eyes from Magic
Gathering.
from the Ice Age set.
Oh, okay.
This sort of like no nonsense barbarian girl who's just like will drink you under the table, will like slap your ass from across the bar and like command you to go with her on a mission.
The barbarian way.
Yeah. It's a very like rough and tumble kind of, not what you expect on the surface from like this blonde, like long
beauty.
Blonde hair kind of like attractive lady.
Those who hit on you beware, you'll get your ass beat.
Well, and I don't try to make characters very often because I get obsessive with characters where like Devin was my first character I made for the campaign, which was kind of a bust. It was a really big bust. But like I had like a 2 to 3 page like almost essay on this character of backstory. It was a tragic daddy issues story. Wow. But like almost every character concept can be traced back to a in real life character. Like
or a pop culture character.
Yeah, pop culture character. Like you have like the Woody Ranger could be like, or a Stoic Ranger could be
Aragorn from Lord of the Rings or Legolas.
Yeah, or you have a dwarf that hates everybody, Gimli. Or even in like the Marvel universe, you have like a snappy comeback guy, that's Tony Stark, or like the smart wizard, that's Bruce Banner. It's a character concept that you take inspiration from the outside, like from in real life, doesn't make the character less yours.
Well, it's a pretty commonly looked at thing that like, sorry to break it to you, but you're not original.
Yeah, I mean,
like, it's really
but
hard
nobody's
to be original. Nobody's original. Everybody steals
you should never
from other
like
things.
because we all play off of the same tropes, right?
Yeah.
You have like the fighter who's really quick to anger. or the druid who can't stand seeing a tree cut down, or the lust-compelled bard.
But I mean, these all go back to like ancient Greece archetypes, like the son who kills the father because he has to, because the father's gone evil, or like you have Plato, you have all these different stories that have begot
the Greeks
stories.
knew how to tell stories.
You should never feel bad about working with character concepts that are already fleshed out.
No, there's nothing wrong with pulling inspiration and doing all that, but you put your own spin on it.
Yeah, like if
you
show up
you mesh a bunch of things together to make something new.
Exactly.
If you show up to a night and you just like you sit down and everyone's introducing your characters, and your character is literally just Legolas with a different name, like blonde elf with a ponytail, fires a bow, real good. It's like, okay, you made Legolas, cool.
Yeah.
How do you develop this into their own character? You know?
and people's building a character is all different. Like you two saying like it's either class or race first, and then me it's the concept. It's everyone's gonna be different. Like my girlfriend, she makes a character. It's like pulling teeth for her to make a backstory, but that's what she likes. She likes to make a character, and then like the game's kind of her backstory, and that's perfectly viable. Like you don't have to have like 9 pages of backstory. You can just have this character just fresh off the boat. Especially
when you're like first level. When you're a first level fighter, you are not a grizzled old army veteran.
Man, that'd be really cool if like you went through like 9 different wars and you're still level 1.
Yeah, why are you still level 1, bud?
I got bonked on the head by a lich and he reset my level.
I mean, sure, like you can add you can add stuff like that, but then why does that backstory like?
But what is a level really?
Yeah, well,
experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you just lose all that experience. What are you?
And that's why it's a hard idea to. It's not a hard idea. It's a hard thing to cut with like just a pair of scissors, a clean cut. Like your inspirations and make it original, because like I said, nothing is original anymore. Like we've had thousands of years of stories that begot stories that begot stories. Like Beowulf, you have to kill the thing in the cave, or like the Nordic stories or the Greek epics or the Roman stories. Like there's overlapping, so there's like these things that like you're less like you're not committed to this character because you're not being original. It's like, what sounds fun to you? Like playing a what's the uncle from the last Airbender?
Uncle Iroh.
Uncle Iroh. Like having a mix of Uncle Iroh and a grizzled war vet.
Yeah,
which is Uncle Iroh. Like someone who doesn't want to deal with that anymore.
Hey, don't be afraid to develop non-traditional characters, right? Because like you talked about, Uncle Iroh is I don't know how many D&D archetypes revolve around like kind of an older gentleman who just doesn't want to fight anymore.
Yeah,
but
very
could
recently,
level a city if he needed to.
But like very recently, I've seen your character kind of loosely fits that. It works very well if you apply it with a lot of like foresight in what you want your character to be.
And it's not like you don't have to cookie cutter it directly from the character. You can add personality traits from a character. It's inspiration. It's not you're taking that character and using it. Like Uncle Iroh, like a mesh of like Uncle Iroh and like just every old grizzled vet who just doesn't want to deal with it anymore. That's a character. It's
actually really funny that we're on this topic, because the next thing I really want to talk about is the backgrounds in D&D. So when you're putting together your character, generally you roll for your stats, you decide your name, you get your weapons and equipment picked out, and you roll for your gold, and then there's just those 4 little boxes off to the side that I feel like everyone does that last. almost, unless you're Thor.
Well, like not to knock it, but I do. Even though I don't usually do the background first, I think the background is the most important part of any character.
Oh yeah,
I think it really makes the character, and that's why, like,
it almost unlocks another level of having fun.
Yeah, and like, I know Devin is the same way, but I don't know about you, Wyatt. But starting at level 3 instead of level 1, that way you have some kind of like, oh yeah, I was grown up by wolves, that's why I'm level 3, or something like that. That way, like, oh, I'm level 1, I'm just a freshly new character that has no experience. And
oh yeah,
like it's a game, but like you have to think of it as like you're level 1, you're like fresh off the boat, or you just got to adulthood. What experiences do you have? Like, what backstory do you have?
yeah. I feel like when they were designing the player's handbook for 5th edition, they looked at the leveling system and were like, up until level 3 to 5, you don't really know who you are.
Exactly.
And
but you have to do all this like circumstantial and like self like speculation stuff as to like, okay, what is my character like? Is it an outlander that was raised by wolves that knows the terrain of everything at level 1? Like, like you would have more stuff than that. Like, you'd have more experiences if you were raised by wolves than just being like, I'm a ranger at level 1, I can shoot a bow. Okay.
yeah, it almost feels like when you make your character, the background should probably come after the first couple of sessions.
Yeah.
You play a little bit, kind of decide what you want your character to be. You know, you don't really know how you're going to play your character until you put voice to paper.
And if you are starting at level 1, those first few adventures that you go on, that is your backstory.
Yeah. That's, yeah, like, if, and I know, again, it was to sell books, which I understand, but, like it's easy to pick up, but, like, starting at level 1, that, like what Devin just said, it is your backstory. That is what you are doing.
Yeah, the player's handbook just kind of offers a guide almost. Like, I love that they include a whole bunch of like rolling tables in there.
Yeah.
Because like if you maybe you don't know what character you want to play. Maybe you just want to like let your dice decide for you. That's an option.
Yeah.
But then again, you can just look through the backgrounds and like see something on the list, like I believe there's one in Criminal where it's kind of like the Robin Hood archetype.
Oh yeah.
The criminal background. And like you see that and it just clicks with you. You want to play a Robin Hood type. You don't have to roll for that. You can just write that down.
Yeah.
The backgrounds are one of the most flexible parts of the book, I feel.
Absolutely.
And a background is not just subject to the things on that paper. Like, you can have your own personal backstory that fits into those boxes, or you can make a backstory that then you can put like in those boxes what it means to you. So like Valen, for instance, he was a druid from the Moon Circle, and they were protectors of the Great Wood. And he was sent to, what's the lady from
Lady Illustrial?
Yeah, Lady Illustrial. Try spelling that. That's a good that's a good
It's like 4 L's in there.
yeah, it's a good words for friends word. Scrabble word. But like you go to Lady, like he went to Lady Illustrial to like, hey, the big tree's poisoned by this tooth thingy. We need to get this going. That's how my character was introduced to the party. But I had a whole backstory of how like he was a what's the word I'm looking for? He was a protector of the forest. Like if something invaded the forest, he would go after that as a bear to deal with it. It's that archetype of the secretive tree people kind of thing, like the wood elves or the dryads or what have you. Like it's the backstory of that, and he was a protector of their homeland, and it failed. And so he came, and he was like what's the word? Oh, Jesus, I'm forgetting words. he was an envoy to Lady Lustriel to help that in the Forgotten Realms universe. So it like the backstory there is how I got introduced to the party, whereas I can't remember Zaka's backstory. I know he was a Yanti.
Well, yeah, Zaka was a Yanti, which are pretty uncommon, and he was a wizard. So, what I wrote for his backstory is that he was discovered by another wizard as an egg, and then raised in the college to be a wizard. And he found out that he came from a lineage of wizards, and he went to go find out what his family was, to find out what secrets they could show him.
Which that's another big. I feel like it's a little. It's really common when making backstories, but I often see it spun a million separate, unique ways. It's the lost knowledge kind of what's it called, trope.
Yep.
Where you are, for all intents and purposes, a complete character with like a puzzle piece missing, and you fixate on that, and that is your goal with your character, almost, is to get that puzzle piece back.
Yeah, tropes are tropes for a reason.
Yeah, because they work.
And it's like when you're picking out your backgrounds, it's equally as important to pick one that fits your build, as well as fitting one that you don't mind role playing as. So if you pick, let's pick a real common one, like you pick like rogue criminal. But that's a pretty common 1-2 pair.
Yeah.
You can't feel bad when you steal from the merchant and he goes out of business, you know?
Yeah, like that's not like the role playing is in like the genre name. Like it's a role playing game. Like there's game in there, but it's also role playing. So if you're just there's some characters that you can just play yourself. Like you can just do things that you think you would do, but at a certain time it'd be boring because you're playing the game to escape, kind of. Like you're playing it to not be yourself.
That's why I'm so adamantly against playing a human.
Same. That's why I like playing monstrous races.
I'm playing a game where I'm escaping the real world. Why would I want to be a human, even though humans are good?
I love playing humans.
Yeah, humans are the best.
Humans are really good, but like, why would I want to do that when I can play a lizard folk?
I just want to play a me that's not me.
Yeah.
Like, is there a race that is strictly better than a human? Like, just base?
Half elf.
Yeah, half elves are really good.
I don't know. Variant human, I think.
The fact that variant human gets the feat is what really puts it up there, but half elf gets so much.
I guess that's fair because they also get a lot of stuff from
They get charisma, they get +1 to any 2 stats, they get like anti-charm effects.
But then you can put Warforged up there because they can be different things as well. Like they're kind of on that half elf line too, because you can. It's like I guess you can't do 2 different, but like they have like a mechanism type.
They have sub races.
Yeah, for each one.
Which that'll let you really kind of build and mold your character as you go. Then
I do really like the races that have like sub races in them.
Like I find myself really liking to play the elf races just because there's so many sub elves.
Damn knife ear.
I don't like elves very much.
I really
They're
enjoyed.
pretentious.
I played a drow one time, and it was the most fun I've ever had playing a spellcaster so far.
Drows are really fun. Like, granted, I played mine edgy, but
edgelord.
Yeah, but I really think like a drow-centered campaign would be really fun. Like going to the Underdark, and because drows are like a vast populace that everyone deems as like they're this one thing, like Drugar. Or like, what's the deep gnome people called?
The deep gnome.
Okay, I thought they had like a crazy name.
Svirfneblin.
There we go. I'm glad we have him here.
I'm the terms guy. I spend a lot of my spare time just looking at these random things.
But yeah, it's a very like you don't have to. I think that's another topic that we can talk about is your race doesn't dictate your attitude.
Yeah, you don't have to. You have to do the trope.
Yeah, you don't have to be a high elf who thinks his shit doesn't stink.
No, there's just they usually are, and that's why elves leave a bad taste in my mouth.
You can be an uncharacteristically like humble kind of elf.
Well, like who's that again, term Devin. Who is the
You're gonna ask me one of these times and I'm not gonna know, and I'm gonna feel terrible.
who's the drow character that's really good? Like that's the good
Jarlaxle?
No. Dritz. Like he's like uncharacteristically good for being a drow, because drows are all like mean and like man, like all that stuff. But Drix is like a really like he's
altruistic.
Yeah, he's the quintessential good character.
Mm-hmm. He's also an asshole.
But like he's one of the most popular characters in the Forgotten Realms.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. He got that way for a reason.
But he's a drow. He's supposed to be one of the worst, like not worst races playable wise, but like worst races as in like they do awful things and they just like
Well, every race has like a little snippet where it says recommended alignments. Drow are recommended to be chaotic evil.
Yeah, which makes no sense.
Well, they're recommended to be chaotic, and it says later that they lean towards evil.
Yeah, and it's all based on their god, which I think is a big no.
Well, Dritz himself is almost like rejecting the drow god. So
yeah.
That's you don't have to play dictated on how the race says.
Yeah, but then they say like, oh, you should play him like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing that I don't agree with. Like, it's good for newer players to get the recommendation on how to play something, but once you get a little more advanced, you can just take that with a grain of salt. Like, Yuan-Ti is one of my favorite races. They're snake people, and they're naturally emotionless. The Yuan-Ti that I played was emotionless. He was supposed to be. I wanted to play him like that. But they have a racial flaw. Like there's a table where you can roll up a flaw for a Yuan-Ti in one of the supplemental books, and one of their flaws is that I'm embarrassed that I actually show emotion.
Yeah, see, that's good. That's
it's actually snuck in there. Like the Yuan-Ti are supposed to be not emotional, and it's like, so why am I feeling fear? Why am I feeling an attachment towards this person? I don't like it.
And aren't Yuan-Ti weird? Like the more monstrous they get, the higher they are in the hierarchy.
Yes, the more terrifying and awful they are, the better that they are in their hierarchy.
They've got that like demon complex almost.
Yeah, the greatest Yuan-Ti is this horrible abomination of like 5-headed snake that is almost demigod in power.
Which makes no sense because the race is called Pure Blood Yuan-Ti. I'm like,
pure bloods are bad.
Yeah, so like you're like the highest tier. Like when I was talking to Devin about it,
peasants.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what? They're pure blood? Like, yeah, that's bad. I'm like, wait, what? Like, yeah, you want to have like all kinds of weird shit in your body.
Yeah, because pure bloods are the most human of all of the Yuan-Ti, and they're considered the lowest except for the actual slaves.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's wild.
That's like a weird flipping on its head, because a lot of times you see like with the specifically, I always think of like the orc half orc thing.
Well, yeah, half orcs are usually looked down upon.
Yeah, orcs
by both.
By humans and orcs.
The orcs are like all big on like pure of blood, pure of like heart kind of thing. Like if you're a half orc, you were considered not as strong-willed as
you're not pure orc. You could never be equal to us bullies.
Yeah. Which I mean, but that's like most monstrous races.
Yeah.
Are like, oh, we only breed on our terms. Like that's why you don't see any halves anymore. Like you don't see half tiefling or half furbolg or half Goliath or anything like that, which makes
knowledge dump on you here, Thor. Tieflings actually breed true. Anything that breeds with a tiefling becomes a tiefling.
But like wouldn't there be like, but in that case, like if a tiefling and a Goliath bred, do you think the tiefling would be really tall?
No, the tiefling would take after the most genetic traits of its tiefling parent.
I don't know. I think that's just
Devin.
That's just lazy. That's just lazy writing.
I'm not saying it's not, but that's what it is.
Devin, you ever thought about going into like D&D biology?
Yes, I have.
Just starting a class.
Trust me. If I could make a living just on doing D&D things, I absolutely would.
They'll live in the dream.
I would live that dream.
But
anyways, sorry.
Oh no, don't worry about it.
With the half orc, full orc thing. So I'm gonna reference my beginner party again.
No,
I'm gonna talk about them a lot because
make all the references. It makes people like.
I think it's a great case study because a lot of times when people sit down with a D&D table, it's always like the dungeon master has been doing it for a long time, and that's why you have them as a dungeon master. And then there's like a couple people in the group who have done it once or twice, and there's like one newbie. There's never like a room full of people who have never touched a polyhedral dice before, and one DM that knows what they're doing.
But that could be fun. Like,
yeah, I mean that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, because you have all the glitter in their eyes. Like, I know Devin and you, Wyatt, and our party has no glitter in our eyes. Like
we're all just dead inside.
Well, not dead inside. But
I
like,
know everything.
But kind of like knowledge is power, but it's also a curse.
Yeah,
because you're like, man. Like,
I scratch the barrel for new character concepts often.
Me too. Like this next one, that if something dies, it's going to be a Kinsai monk and a arcane archer.
Arcane archer is such a cool
arcane
subclass.
Archers are cool.
Yeah.
Like tangent, my first ever ranged character was an arcane archer, but it was when arcane archer was in 4th edition's Unearthed Arcana.
What edition?
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
But it
goes 3-5, 5th.
It was when they were like experimenting with like archers can cast spells too, you know. And I rolled up an arcane archer and it was like, this is busted. I love it.
This arrow gonna paralyze you, bud.
Oh no!
What do you mean that arrow does regular arrow damage and 2d6 poison? Oh
my!
It's so good. But anyway, with this new party, in the party there are 2 half-orcs, and not knowing anything about the Forgotten Realms monster manual, they have a quest to deliver a whole bunch of supplies to a remote mountain town. They do that, and in the mountains is where I have all my orcs living. That's where the orcs kind of clash with the dwarves in terms of territory and like resources.
Classic.
And
classic, yeah.
In the lore, like tangentially, the orcs ran out of supplies, so they had to swallow their pride and start asking other races for help, which is super uncharacteristic for orcs to do. This is where the half-orcs in this world come from, and that sting of asking what the orcs perceive as lesser races for help still exists. And so they get to this town, they deliver the quest, and I mention awfully that there is a mine nearby and the orcs are working in the mines. And naturally, my party assumes like, oh, they don't know anything about the lore of this world right now. They assume that the orcs were enslaved by the humans to mine resources. So they're like questioning the because
what assuming does.
I made the mayor of this town a very Colonel Sanders type.
Oh no.
And they were just like, oh man, we have to free these people. And
no, these people are here on their own volition.
And they
they're workers.
They go over to these 2 orcs that are like they're off work. They're just chilling out. They got their pickaxes on the ground. The 2 half-orcs walk over and they're like questioning these people, and these half-orcs are like, oh, filthy shit bloods in this town. And it was like,
whoa.
Yeah,
easy, bub.
It got way hostile.
I'm here to save you. Fuck off. Oh,
way quick.
I'm on lunch.
It revealed to them at that moment that
this is their choice.
What they see isn't what they're going to get.
Yeah.
And at that point the 2 half-orcs in the party were like, okay, we should go. This is a little bit awkward.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, bud.
Sorry about burning down your house.
And
I'm just gonna leave.
They continued their quest, and I still ask the 2 half-orcs in the party in person and be like, you're not gonna go harass any more miners, are you? And they're like, no, we're just gonna do the quest.
Rise up, my brothers. Rise up where?
What? I'm
what do you
working.
mean? We live here.
Yeah. This is my home. I'm digging my home.
But anyway, with that, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. And, well, it won't be like 5 minutes for you guys. It'll be instantaneous.
Ooh.
So.
Breaking for station identification.
Ooh. So we'll be right back. Hello, listeners. Wyatt from the future here. I didn't realize it when we took our break, but when we came back to record the second half, we made way more episode than I initially anticipated. So consider this episode part 1 of creating memorable characters. We'll see you next week with part 2, unless you're a listener from the future, in which case part 2 is already out. Go listen to that if you haven't already. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed our show, you can support us by leaving a rating on Area of Expertise. If you are listening on YouTube, a like or subscription is a great way to let us know you want more. This has been AoE, and we'll see you in the next one.